This is Dr. John Tolson, and you're listening to the Disciple Making Podcast. So we're talking about making disciples. Matthew chapter 28, verse 19 says, Jesus says, "Go therefore into all the world and make disciples." He assumes the going. The command is to make disciples. So last week we talked about this whole subject of when you're willing to do what he says and make disciples, then how do you pick a disciple? So you might want to go to last week's Red Glasses Talks and see what we said about that. But today what we want to talk about, once you focused on somebody that you want to disciple, then what are the expectations? This is really important. Listen to this. You will get what you ask for as you challenge a person to disciple. If you ask for a little, you'll get a little. If you ask for a lot, you just might get a lot. So it's very important that you have expectations. I mean, over the years, I have met with a lot of folks. And one of the things I failed to do for so many years was to ask for certain commitments and expectations and lay those out very clearly in the beginning, not on the end. And so that is a critical phase and a part of the process of making disciples. So let me give you a couple things I think are important. Number one, and this to me is the most important, is you ask the person for the commitment on the front end. If you want me to take you on and disciple you, then I expect you, when we're finished, to reproduce. In other words, that they will make a commitment before you ever start the process that when we're completed, I will disciple at least one or two people a year through the same process that you have discipled them through. And so that is absolutely critical. And we mean taking the 4 priorities, which we'll go through in a couple weeks, and give you an overview of that. So to reproduce, that is the key. I know a lot of people that meet with people to build a basic base of faith, some of the essentials into a person's life. But very few, if any, as a part of that process, ask that person to reproduce that in the life of another person. And if we don't do that, if we don't reproduces, we're not doing what Jesus said to do. The second thing is to meet weekly. I think if you meet once a month, twice a month, and you happen to miss one of those times, or you ended up meeting once every 4 weeks or 5 weeks, and meet weekly. You got to make that commitment to have that hour and 15 minutes weekly where you're beginning to walk through this process. Number 3, come prepared. So you need to read, share with one another what you're learning, and go apply it. Read, share, and apply. So when we go through the 4 priorities book, and again, we'll go over that in a few sessions from now of Red Glasses, but I expect the person to read what's there, to underline, to make notes in the margin, come prepared with questions, whatever it is, but dig into that and in an attempt to understand it, to learn from it, and then to apply it. And then the final thing, and this kind of goes back to what I said before, consistent application. That I want you to be willing to consistently apply what we're learning from this past week in its study in terms of living it out in your daily life. So there we go. Reproduce, meet weekly, come prepared, and consistently apply. Now listen to this. Matthew 28 tells us, "Go therefore into all the world and make disciples, who make disciples, who make disciples." But here's what I want you to remember. To know and not to do is not to know at all. You think about that. Thanks for listening to the Disciple Making Podcast. Check out our website at thetolsongroup.com and sign up for my weekly encouraging videos called Red Glasses Talks to come to your email every Monday morning. You can also find me at Dr. John Tolson on social media. I'd appreciate it if you'd leave me a review and share with a friend.